Hello everyone! Welcome to a overview of the units that added in the King and the Warlord DLC. Spent some time doing some tests, looking them over, and I will say initially, I think I like this DLC a lot more than the previous one with the Grave and the Grim. I like the Renown units a lot more, I like the new units added a lot more, but also I kind of like Dwarves and Greenskins more to begin with. Anyway, for multiplayer purposes here, the new units, we have a Rune Lord, who I think you're going to see quite often. The Rune Lord, much like the Arch Lector for the Grim and the Grave, is an upgraded support unit here. He's the upgraded support unit for the Runesmith. His abilities are just better versions of the Runesmith. And not only that, but they will be able to stack with the Runesmith, which I'm going to show you in a video here very shortly. He also comes with the generic Stand Your Ground, and then this is his special ability here, Rune of Hearth and Home, which grants a constant 100% charge resistance and immune to psychology. Now, this is not going to be that amazing for Longbeards, who are already immune to psychology, but for a dwarf line of dwarf warriors, or like miners, his buff for immune to psychology can be pretty huge. He also has the Forge Fire, which the Runesmith also has. The item that he has is a self buff, which makes him unbreakable for 25 seconds, so that's okay. And then he can take this unique mount, which kind of makes him look like Thorgrim Grudgebearer, the Anvil of Doom. It does add a little, or does change his stats a little bit here, but it also grants him another ability, the Locus of Power, which will grant you a map-wide additional 15 magical resistance on top of the native magic resistance that dwarves have. So this is kind of hit or miss. I think if you bring these units, which I will cover here in just a little bit, these ethereal new heroes that only Clan Angrund has, then this becomes a little bit more viable because ethereal units are really weak to magic. But overall, most people don't really focus on damaging spells against dwarves because everyone knows they have a high magic resistance already. So this is kind of hit or miss. Again, I would probably only bring this if you bring ethereal units with the Rune Lord. Before we get to Belegar, I'm going to actually show you the power of a Rune Lord and a Runesmith, because again, I think this is a combination you're going to be seeing online all the time. The Runesmith was already what I called God tier unit. It is an amazing unit that I think you should bring in every battle, kind of like Gorbulls for the Beastmen. That's what the Runesmith is for the Dwarves. And now you have a more powerful Rune Lord and their ability stack. So let me show you that video I have queued up against Graveguard with great weapons that are going to be fighting against Dwarf Warriors, backed up by these two.
Belegar's blessing on us, master of runecraft. For our ancestors! All right! Go! For the Karazhan Corps! That'll do! Hey, unbending! Of smiting upon them. Ready! Slay all will do it! What? Seeking revenge! Rune is with us! It is an order! What? Ready to strike! Dwarf warriors! Runes of power! Yes. Ready! Dwarf warriors! Runes of spellbreaking! By the Layer's will! By vengeance!
So as you can see in that test battle, which is not an actual live battle, but it can simulate the battle of what would happen in a main infantry line going against, another infantry line, in this case Graveguard charging a dwarf, which is very common. If you're fighting against vampire counts, you're probably going to be fighting against Graveguard with great weapons, because they chew through dwarf armor. But with these two together, you saw how basic dwarf warriors, these 450 cost basic dwarf warriors, could hold the line with these two heroes, or the sword and this hero, and they can actually turn the tide against a Graveguard. Moving on to the actual legendary lord that was added in this for Clan Angrund, we have Belegar Ironhammer, who is a melee expert, armored and shielded, charge defense against all, kind of like the Iron Breakers. His stats are pretty good. He may not be an armor piercer, but his stat line is really good. His abilities are also pretty cool. Now, we have these kind of generic abilities, the Foe Seeker, the Deadly Onslaught, and the Stand Your Ground. But then he comes with the Mighty Oathstone, which is going to be an AoE 45-meter range for 26 seconds, which is going to increase melee defense by 36, and then also give everybody expert charge defense. The other unique ability that this guy has, Revenge Incarnate. A self buff, only one time used for 43 seconds. He gets the power of basically a wall with the melee attack, 36% armor piercing damage, and becomes unbreakable. That armor piercing damage will stack with the Deadly Onslaught. So this, even though he's not armor piercing, with those two buffs on, I'm going to show you a video here in a moment, it's really strong. And then you can also add this, the Hammer of Angrund, which is only going to be a constant buff as long as his leadership holds, which with that unbreakable, he can hold for a long time. But this is going to give him an even more charge bonus, more melee attack, more base weapon damage, and immune to psychology at all times as long as his leadership is above 50%. So let me show you. Now, I'm going to show you a battle between him and Grimgor. I did multiple tests. This was the first test. Just see how he does against Grimgor, who is also fully kitted out with all of his abilities.
Scoff! I approve! Very well! Vengeance calls! Yes, yes!
Yeah, Grimgor Ironhide got smacked in the face with from Belegar Ironhammer. Now, I did do multiple tests after that one. That was my initial one, and sometimes Grimgor does do a lot better. Sometimes he almost can bring Belegar Ironhammer down to about 0. And again, in this is a mock battle with only a 1v1 against lords. And in an actual battle, there's going to be more other units influencing things. But in just a one-on-one fight, if you have all of your buffs still, that's another big thing. In an actual battle, you may be already using, Mighty Oathstone in the initial charge. You may already have Standing Ground is going to be on cooldown. I would highly suggest you keep Revenge Incarnate, because it's only one-time use. In an actual battle, keep that thing as long as you can until you engage against an enemy lord like Grimgor, or you really need this ability. Don't just pop this at the beginning of the battle and, throw your Belegar into a group of biggins or something. Make sure you save it, because this is huge and can definitely turn the tide if, a Grimgor, maybe if, I haven't tested against Karl Franz. I'm not sure how that would happen. Karl Franz and a Griffin, Belegar may still die. I'm not entirely sure. But in any case, try and save Revenge Incarnate for when you absolutely need it. And I think the Hammer of Angrund for 200 is pretty solid. He is a very good melee fighter. So let's get into the heroes here. All of these are basically upgraded hero versions of what's already in the game. The King Ironhammer and Stonebeard are upgraded Thanes. You can only bring one of each of these. But what's really unique is that, of course, they are ethereal, so they have 80% physical resistance. They all have magical melee attacks, and they are all also unbreakable, and they cause fear and terror. Fear and terror was something that the Dwarf Army had 0 of, but here they have fear and terror in these unique heroes, which can do a unique combination with one of the new Renown units, this Gob Lobber, which I'll get into here in just a little bit. But anyway, so these two are upgraded Thanes. One, again, is more offensively focused, one is more defensively focused. This is the upgraded Runesmith. Besides him being ethereal and all this other stuff, I don't think he's actually any different. Yeah, he has the same abilities and items that the generic runesmith has, but he's ethereal, unbreakable, fear, terror, 80% physical resistance, which is insane. I mean, you can also bring him and a runesmith if you want to. But I don't believe their abilities will stack on top of each other because they're the same abilities, unlike the Rune Lord and the runesmith. But anyway. So then we have Dwarfs Hammerfist, which again is just an upgraded version of the Master Engineer. Has the same abilities, although this is a new one. Entrenchment also comes with the basic Master Engineer as well. So for 47 seconds, a unit is going to have increased armor-piercing missile damage and physical resistance, but it is going to not be able to move for 47 seconds. It's a cool ability. It can be cast on any unit, including themselves, so that is a pretty cool upgrade for the Master Engineer. And again, Dwarfs Hammerfist also has that ability. Besides that, though, he is exactly the same. Yeah, Rune of Slowness, the Master Engineer also has, as well as the Banner of the Lost Holds, I believe. Yeah. So again, these are just all basically upgraded or ethereal versions of their counterparts over here, which is pretty cool. Now, the fear effect is really... it opens up a possibility. So, I'm going to jump ahead with the Units of Renown here and get to the Gob Lobber. The Gob Lobber is not only amazing because it attaches goblins to rocks and just hurls them through the air, but it also has this debuff on enemies around them, which is going to discourage them for 10 seconds, giving them a minus 16 leadership. You combine that with the fear and terror effect of the new ethereal lords, and that can be a very powerful combination, which I'm going to actually show you here in a video where I do exactly this type of thing.
Reloading! Reload! The ancestors watch! War of vengeance! Vengeance! Whose blow down their headed!
So in that mock battle, you saw how the combination of the getting hit by artillery, discouraged, fear, and terror could really shake a orc's or anyone's morale, really. Now, those are against savage orcs. They're not the most high tier of units, but again, I just want to show you a potential combination that you can have with this new goblin Gob Lobber, which this discourage thing is just amazing. Even without the help of the banshees, like, this debuff is still, I think, totally amazing and makes this Gob Lobber really cool. So anyway, those are the new ethereal lords. They are only available for Clan Angrund. You can see if you pick the dwarves, you will not have access to them. So if you want to play as Thorgrim or Ungrim, you will not be able to choose those units. So just keep that in mind. Let's go back to Clan Angrund here. Besides that, though, the two factions are the same. They all have the same new units with the Rangers. They all have the same Renown units, but again, just the ethereal lords. So, speaking about the new units, we have the Rangers here. I'm not getting into the Renown stuff yet. So we have Rangers with great weapons, Bugman's Rangers, and then there's going to be a Renown version, which we'll get into in a moment. So, the basic Rangers, all of these Rangers, by the way, have Stalk, which is pretty cool, and also Vanguard deployment, so you can really get into some tricksy playstyles with these Rangers. The basic one is basically just a Quarreler that has Vanguard and lower armor. If you compare their stats here, you can see the leadership of the Quarreler is actually higher as well. But that's basically, it's kind of like a weaker Quarreler, but with Vanguard and Stalk. So honestly, I think this is an amazing unit. Anything that has Stalk is amazing. Simply because your enemy will not account for that unit because they don't know it's there until it's too late. And that is a huge deal in multiplayer because everything is happening so fast that if you have like Rangers on the wings, after the initial engagement happens, after your enemy assigns all of their melee attackers to hit the lines and they're whipping their cav around the flanks or something, if you pull these Rangers in, one, they may not even notice them at first, and then two, it's going to be the shock effect of your enemy being like, oh shit, there's this unit I didn't even know was in the battle, now I have to account for that, and that accounts for a lot of stuff. The Ranger with Great Weapon does not have a crossbow. Instead, they have throwing axes, so their range is limited, but their missile damage is quite high. And I'll show a video in a little bit showing them off. But again, just like the counterpart in the Rangers, they also have Stalk and Vanguard deployment, so they are another pretty cool unit. They are also pretty fast. I forgot to mention that. These Rangers are faster than normal dwarves, so that's also cool. They're not super fast, but they're pretty fast for a dwarf. These guys, I think you're going to see a lot. The missile damage, especially if you're facing off against like Chaos, you're probably going to see a bunch of Rangers with great weapons. Their melee stats are not anything amazing, but they're also not the worst. Kind of just like Quarrelers and Thunderers, so they can still kind of hold their own in melee, but with the weaker armor, they are not going to hold up as well. But I think the missile damage, which you'll see here in a bit, is more than worth it. Then we also have Bugman's Rangers, which are pretty cool. For 750, they are a Quarreler unit, so they have the same damage as a Quarreler. They have less armor than a Quarreler, but their melee attack and defense is going to be higher than a Quarreler. I think it's on par with a Thunderer. About on par with the Thunderer. But the cool thing about these guys is that they do have Vanguard deployment. They are also Stalk. They are immune to psychology. And then they also have liquid fortification, which is a constant regeneration buff, but they have a 30% penalty to accuracy, which I think is hilarious. These dudes are just drinking on the field of battle, not caring, and they're regenerating hit points, apparently. So they're pretty cool. And they're not a Renown unit, so you can spam these guys if you want to. And I think that's pretty awesome. I think Bugman's Rangers are just a cool idea, just lore-wise, because they're Bugman's Rangers, so of course they're going to be drunk, and their accuracy is going to be lower. The whole regeneration of hit points kind of seems a little weird, but, you know what, I'll take it. So those are the new Ranger units, and then we got the Bolt Thrower. Yeah, so I've done some tests with the Bolt Thrower. It seems okay, especially since it's only 550. The range of 340 is, I mean, of course you wish it was higher, but it's not bad. And the armor piercing damage that they can deal is not terrible. It's not terrible. It's a very cheap artillery piece. Cheaper than the Grudge Thrower. They are pretty accurate in the tests that I've run, so like, I haven't played against any human players yet because at the time of this recording, it's not actually available to everybody. But I'll definitely test these out in a multiplayer environment and see how well they do. But just stat-wise and the test against the AI, they're not that bad. For 550, it's super cheap. decent enough range and armor piercing damage, which is pretty cool. It's not too terrible. So that's the new artillery piece for the dwarves, and that's going to be all of their new units. Before we get into the Renown units, let me show you the video that I did of nothing but Rangers and a couple bolt throwers. This is going to be the Ranger battle.
Iron will. Yes! I'll do it! Lord of Clan Morgrim. The clans unite! Iron will. Fine! It'll get done. Yes! Beard's ready! Come on! The Darwin ready! No sonic contraptions here! The clans unite! Reach fast! Reach fast! Off we go! Down! For Grimnir! Gears of Zofbar! Ready! Charge! Rune ready! Yes, laddie! Move! Give me vengeance! Killers! Withdraw! Getting close! Armed and ready! That's it! This way! Withdraw! Vengeance! They have wronged us! Our fire ready to serve! For our ancestors! Ready! Kill Urks! For the Carrots on guard! Master of Runecraft! For the ancestor gods! Axes out, lads! Vengeance! Move on! Strike out! For the Karas and God! Karas and God! Kill the Orcs! Yes! Now! Now! Ready to serve! Kasuk! For the Karas and Orcs! Runes of power! Kill Orcs! For the ancestors! Vengeance! Will do! Kasuk! Yes! Withdraw! Satisfy the grudge! Vengeance! I've killed a brood! For mountain and home! They have wronged us! Axes out, lads! For mountain and home! Axes out,
Yes!
lads!
Plow
Yes!
through!
That's it! Our fire undid! Castle! Measures! Down! Beers ready! Yes! War of vengeance! Kill the old splitters! For the ancestor gods!
You can see I had the Bugman's Rangers in the front because they had the regeneration, so I just wanted them to hold as long as possible. Where is it? Yeah, that little regeneration. And then the Rangers with great weapons behind them, man, if they are not shut down, look at the damage they did. It's insane. Now, this was against an AI opponent. There wasn't really much flanking involved. They just kind of ran into the front line. Some human players would do that as well. Like, not every single player is going to use their forces to flank around stuff, but still, that's insane. The damage potential of those Rangers with great weapons are insane. And again, because they have stalk, the enemy has no idea that they're there, which is, I don't know, they're pretty cool. So let's dive into some of the Renown units, which I think are also going to be better than the Grim and the Grave, or at least I like them better than the Grim and the Grave. But again, I'm kind of partial to the Dwarves and the Greenskins. So for the Dwarf Renown units, we have the Angrund Miners, which are going to be the upgraded miners with blasting charges. For 200 more, you're getting a increased melee stats, which is cool. You're getting increased leadership as well. But what you're also getting is 2 additional ammunition for their blasting charges. It may not sound like much, but that's insane to me. For 200 more, you're getting a beefier miner unit with 2 additional blasting charges, which I think is really cool. Keep in mind that they are also flaming attacks, so the flaming attacks in this one is going to have some synergy with other units, which I'll get into later. But of course, flaming damage does more against units with regeneration, so against vampire counts, you may definitely want to bring the Angrund Miners, because they can just sit there behind your front line and just chuck blasting charge after blasting charge after blasting charge. Like, they have a lot of ammunition with those blasting charges, so I think these are really cool. It's kind of basic, like they're not super fancy. Oh my god, I totally forgot. They also have Frenzy. Duh, sorry. I almost went over them without talking about the Frenzy. They have Frenzy, by the way, as well. For only 200 more ammunition, better melee stats, better leadership, and Frenzy. I mean, it's psychology. So, I mean, as long as the leadership is above 50%. So that's even more reason to bring them against, you know, vampire counts. But, I mean, really they will work in probably against any army. But I'm just saying, flaming attacks do more damage versus regeneration. The next one for the infantry here we have is the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. So for an additional 250, you're going to once again get a Dwarf Warrior who has increased melee stats, increased leadership, but on top of that, they do fire damage. I think that's really the big change with them. Yeah, that's kind of the big change. The melee stats and the fact that they do fire damage. Oh, right, also the fact that they have bonus versus infantry. I knew there was something else missing. So this is a huge upgrade for them. Bonus versus infantry is great. And again, flaming attacks will have some synergy possibilities with some other units of renown, which we're going to be getting to again soon. So I think these are worth it. The bonus to infantry attack, I think, makes these guys more than worth it. The flaming attack synergy is pretty cool. Let's get into... Actually, let's just talk about that right now. So, one of the other renowned units are going to be the Dragonback Slayers. The Dragonback Slayers are a beefier version of Slayers, melee attack plus 12. But on top of that, they also have this power of Dragonback. So they have increased flame resistance if in melee, and any unit they hit is going to have this flammable debuff, which is going to decrease their flame resistance and decrease their speed. So you can team this up with, if you're in a team battle, you can team it up with like a Bright Wizard from the Empire or a Fire Lord from Chaos, who have the map-wide flame weakness. So if you have the map-wide flame weakness in a team battle, with the power of the Dragonback, also hitting that same unit with the Warriors Dragonfire Pass, which have the flaming attacks, you can be hitting them with the Miners with the flaming attacks, you can be hitting them with the Iron Drakes. Basically, these Dragonback Slayers kind of add a synergy with other units that were added into the Dwarven army, and also synergizes with, again, fire casters from other factions in this game. Potentially, it's kind of cool. It can be cool. You can do just tons of damage to especially the vampire counts. I would take the synergy with. I would always take, maybe not always, but in most cases, Dragonback Slayers, the Warriors Dragonfire Pass. I would also bring maybe even Iron Drakes at that point. Basically anything that does flaming damage, like even the flame, yeah, maybe even a flame cannon, because those units with regeneration have a native weakness to flame damage already. So if you combine that with the Dragonback Slayers and all, like, the potential against vampire counts is pretty cool. I really like that synergy. The other cool unit of renown is going to be the Grumbling Guard Longbeards. So they are a great weapon Longbeard with increased melee stats and leadership, blah, blah, blah. But the cool thing about them, old Grumblers. So every 25 seconds, this is going to proc in a 45-meter area and give every friendly unit around them 30% of their vigor. Now that may not sound like much. I understand. Vigor is not something I talk about that often, but the vigor is tied into the unit's stamina. So when you hover over a unit in combat and you see it says tired, very tired, active, all that stuff, anything below fresh, the unit is getting a debuff to one of their stats. With active, it's not that big. With tired, I think it starts affecting their melee attack. With very tired, it's affecting their speed, melee defense, and melee attack. And then by like exhaustion, they have a penalty of, God, I think it's 30% to their armor, 25% melee attack, 30% melee defense, slowed down by about 20%. Their reload speed is slowed down, and they also take a penalty to their morale. There's an exhaustion penalty. I think it's -8. So in a long battle, these Grumbling Guards, as long as you keep them alive and kind of moving up and down your dwarf line, all of your units, because I've tested this, in combat, they will all remain fresh. While the enemy is tiring out and all of their combat stats are taking a hit, your units are fresh through the entire battle. So, is this Grumbling Guard worth the 250 cost increase? Yes. Hell yes. And they are more worth it the longer you can keep them alive and the longer the battle goes, because the enemy army is going to be tired out. Yours is not. And again, I don't usually talk about vigor because there isn't many things that can give you your vigor back, your stamina back. So most of the time, everybody is fighting at very tired or exhaustion around the same time. So all their stats are taking the same hit. So they're basically, there's really no big difference. But these add a huge difference. Having an entire fresh army at the end of the battle is huge, potentially huge. Definitely like the Grumbling Guard. They are really cool. They add to the whole field that the Dwarf army is supposed to just sit there and tank it out for a long time. This is going to help you do that even more. Alright, so moving on to the Nor Gremlins Ironbreakers. These guys are pretty cool. For 250 cost, you're getting an additional, was it 20 models? Well, I guess it depends on what unit size you play on. On large, which is the unit size that you're going to be playing on if you do like quick battles, they only get a increase of 15, but that's still pretty huge. And on top of that, they're also going to be immune to psychology, Vanguard deployed, which can open up some interesting playstyles. You can Vanguard deploy these guys and then hide a bunch of rangers behind them, and so the enemy may go after the Ironbreakers, maybe, and then they're like, oh, surprise! They were protecting a bunch of rangers. I don't know, the Vanguard on these guys is not something that I'm super excited about. The additional models in the actual unit is something to be excited about. They are going to be stronger than the other Ironbreakers by a little bit, and they're already pretty strong. But yeah, I'd say they're definitely worth it, because you get more models to the unit, they become immune to psychology, and they're just more tankier. Like, they're better Ironbreakers. And then we have the Peak Gate Guard. Like, all of these units of Renown are pretty cool. The Peak Gate Guard, again, like most Renown units, are going to be stronger, higher leadership, but their unique thing is going to be the fact that their melee attacks are magical, and they sunder armor for 10 seconds, which is a 32 armor debuff. So what I would use these guys for, or what you can use them for, is I would stretch them in a very long line, and I would move them up into the battle line. Don't necessarily issue an attack order, because then they all start to converge on the unit that you issued them against. Keep them in a long line and just move them up, because all you need is one of their models to make contact with any other enemy model in the game, and that entire unit that the enemy model is attached to is going to now have this Sunder armor buff. So you could just have a bunch of Dwarf warriors, and then you throw these Peak Gate Guard into a long line, and I tested it out. You can usually about hit 3 different units at once, as long as you keep these guys in a spread out line. And that's 3 different units that their armor is going to be sundered, just because one of these guys hit one of their guys. And that means that your Dwarf warriors are going to be that much stronger, because now their weapon strength, which is not bad, is now going to have more of an impact on all those units that they're fighting, because their armor is going to be sundered by the Peak Gate Guard. Or if you want to, you can just throw them in a 1-1 fight against, like, you know, Black Orcs, Great Swords, whatever you want to, and they usually win. I did test against Black Orcs. They win against Black Orcs pretty handily. They win against Great Swords pretty handily, and Graveguard with great weapons pretty handily on their own. But again, you can do it for that way, or you can use them as like a support unit to make your front line even that much stronger. In either way, I think they're definitely worth the cost increase over the other hammers. It's really expensive, but the Sundering Armor and magical attacks is pretty huge. Pretty huge. So they are also a very cool unit. Then we get into the Missile Infantry. We have the Uthar's Raiders, which are going to be a renowned unit of the Raiders with great weapons. So their special thing, I believe they also have increased melee stats. Yeah, melee attack, melee defense, leadership, you know, the whole 9 yards as usual. But on top of that, their unique thing is going to be marked by Uthar. For 41 seconds, a unit is going to be marked by them, which gives them a debuff for missile resistance, armor, and missile parry chance. Pretty cool. And since they're only 100 more in cost over the ranges with great weapons, I definitely think this is worth it. In the battle, as long as you keep these guys alive, you can probably get this off twice, because the battle starts with this active. Well, not active, but you can click it at the start. There's no, like, cooldown. So you can probably cast this about twice. The penalty to armor is pretty cool. The missile resistance is pretty cool. So you plop this on some unit that you really want to focus down pretty quickly. Any unit in the game. Its range is also pretty long. And then you just focus all of your range fire at that unit, and it will melt. So for 100 more in cost, Uthar's Raiders, I think, are a great buy. The other missile renown unit, these guys are pretty cool. The Scolder Guards, they sit in between the Iron Drakes and the Troll Hammer Torpedoes. I say that because they have armor piercing damage like the Troll Hammer Torpedoes, but they're explosive armor piercing damage, not necessarily a missile armor piercing. You can see most of their damage is done with explosive, whereas the Troll Hammer Iron Drakes, their missiles are actually doing most of the damage. They have to actually connect with the enemy to do damage. These guys just have to hit in the general area to do an AoE damage, which is weaker than the Troll Hammer Torpedo, but still it's an area of effect. Besides that, their guns changing to a steam armor piercing, I don't think they're that much different. I guess the range is lower than Troll Hammer Torpedoes. So like I said, they sit kind of in the middle between these two. If you want no armor piercing but high base damage that does kind of like an AoE, this does an AoE armor piercing. This is really good against infantry. Or then now you have, of course, the Troll Hammer Torpedoes, which are good against anti-large units for the most part. So it's a cool addition, but they do suffer from another problem that all of these kind of units suffer from. You need to really get their positioning down. It's kind of hard when your lines are met in combat and they're fighting somebody. You know, your Dwarf Warriors are fighting some other infantry. It's kind of hard to get good shots on them if you're sitting behind your own line. So it's all about positioning with these Iron Drakes. It's kind of how it's always been with them. But still, I've tested them out, and if you get them in a good position, they can destroy Black Orcs pretty quickly. They can destroy all those heavily armored units pretty quickly, because again, they do the AoE damage. So I think that is definitely a cool unit, which I'm going to test out in multiplayer. Probably against Greenskins, Vampire Counts. Mostly probably against those two, because you're going to be seeing a lot of Graveguard and like Black Orcs with those two factions. But anyway, that's going to be their other missile renown unit. Then we get to the artillery ones. We have two of them here. We've already covered the Gob Lobber. We also have the Skyhammer, which is going to be a renowned unit of the Gyro Bomber for 200 more in cost. Its stats, again, I think are slightly increased. Maybe not. Maybe not at all. I guess not at all. So their big difference here is going to be in their Skyhammer bombs. Instead of dropping one bomb at a time, they drop 3 bombs at a time. And I'm going to actually show you a video that's going to compare the Gyro Bomber to the renowned Skyhammer Gyro Bomber, so you can see exactly what the difference is.
Go! Plow through! Understood, Lord! Strike out! Aye, as you command! Go! Vengeance! Oh, go! Moving out! Right! Charge! Plow through! Yes! Yes! Move! Range far, range fast! Nothing can stop us! Plow through! Move! Come on! Understood, Lord! On the move now! Range far, range fast! On earth! Nothing can stop us! Charge! Gob strike out! Go! Off we go! On! Nothing can stop us! Go!
So there you go. In that video, you can see the Skyhammer, it does technically come with more bombs. It may have less bomb drops, but each one is dropping 3, so they do have more damage potential for their 200 cost increase. So I think it's worth it for two reasons. One, you do the damage, actually for one reason really, less micromanaging. You do all of your damage a lot faster, which means you don't have to micromanage this unit that much. You just get in there, you drop all your bombs, boom, 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 boom. It does a lot of explosive damage at once, and then you just kind of sit there and have them shoot some armored target because their main gun does do a lot of missile damage. So because the less micromanagement involved in this unit, I think I'm more likely to bring it. I don't know if this is going to be a great unit. I still think the Gyro Bomber is kind of for the cost of it, but I'll at least try it in multiplayer, and I'm encouraged because it requires less micromanagement. You get more boom for the, less time, basically. And that covers all of the units of renown for the Dwarves, I believe. Let me just double check. I think last time I did one of these overviews, I missed one. But no, that should be it. So overall, I'm very happy with the Renown units. I'm very happy with the addition of the Dwarf Rangers. I think they are a great addition to the Dwarf roster, giving them units with Stalk and Vanguard, and they're pretty cool. Bugman's Rangers are just awesome because they're drunk Rangers just out there on the field having a good time. The Renown units are just awesome. The Gob Lobber? Yeah, Gob Lobber Grudge Thrower is just so cool because it's funny as hell, and then the debuff that it has with Assist Courage is just amazing. I love it. Gyro Bomber, The Scolder Guard I'm kind of on, but I'm hopeful. But besides those, I really like the synergy of all the firing attacks that they have now. The fear that the Dwarf army can now unleash with these Thera units, I think, adds a whole new aspect of their playstyle, and it's just cool. I really like the addition. Before I end this video, I'm going to take a quick look at the campaign. So with the Grand Campaign, you have multiple new options now. You have the Bloody Hands, the Crooked Moon, but for the end of this video, we're going to cover the clan Angrund. So for Angrund, one of their big things is they have access to the powerful ghost units that I covered just a little earlier. They of course have grudges, they can use the Underway, and then they have a roster of heavily armored units because there's dwarves. But their legendary lord, of course, is going to be Belegar Ironhammer. He starts in the mountains on the west side of the Border Prince's territory. Powerful offensive melee fighter and leader, which I think you saw there. Here is the starting armor of Hammerers, Dwarf Warriors, and he also gets a group of Rangers. He has a unique building chain available if he takes over Carrick 8 Peaks. Carrick 8 Peaks is kind of over here if this map continued on. It's over here in the Wastelands, kind of in the southeast part of the map. So if he conquers that, he's going to have access to some kind of buildings. I don't know what those are, unfortunately, because I haven't actually played long enough to get there, but know that that's the thing. He also starts with, of course, the 4 clan Ancestor Heroes, which are those ethereal units. Leadership plus 10 when laying siege is kind of, it's alright. And then this is kind of bad. Upkeep minus 50% until Carrick 8 Peaks is recaptured, which really means you want to just go as fast as you can across the wastelands to capture that base, because that is really expensive. So there you go, have it. There is the starting location for the new Dwarf faction, the new Lord, and their starting army. So I hope you enjoyed the video, everybody. If you want to take a look at the Warlord part of the DLC overview, I'm going to have a video of that up. I'll try to link it here, or at least in the description below. So that's going to be covering the other legendary lord that was released, actually the other 2 legendary lords for the one of the Bloody Hands, and then the Crooked Moon, and of course all of the new units added to the Greenskins and their renowned ones. Hope you enjoyed the video, everybody. I'll see you all next time. Have a good day.